Yes, Rajiv.
So,
Over to
yeah, thank you very much. I'll, try to then, to that extent, try to crunch my talk. First of all, it's indeed a privilege and my pleasure to be amongst stalwarts of Bangalore. I can see some people well known to me over the years, and I'm glad, to be given this opportunity by the president of Rotary Club, Rotary Bangalore Brigade, and Akshay Malappa and Hari Krishnan, other people some of them whom I know. So when you look about to service above self, your credo at Rotary, and I'm going to jump into the topic, but I just want to touch about one thing which may not be very well known. There is a word called seva, which all of you might be knowing, right? So the word seva normally is translated as service, right? Service without, not unselfish service, etc. But does anybody really, I mean, this is of course slightly controversial, but still is something which I would like to ask. Do you really know the meaning of seva, or one of the real deeper meanings of seva? If somebody is aware of the non so well known name of the meaning of seva, just in case anybody knows it, one of the meanings is string, and the seva is string representing the universal connection between every human being on the face of this earth, or every anything which is there, that universal connection which binds all living beings and everything in nature. So when you look at service, actually it springs from this larger connection that we all enjoy with each other, and which we tend to forget in the hurly-burly of life. So when I look at the Rotary credo of service above self, always I'm inspired about the fact that rising above the limited version of who I am to go to a higher thing. Ayurveda springs from very much such ideals. It talks about human beings in connection with their environment. How do they engage? How do they maintain good health? And on a sustained basis, not the absence of disease, but the presence of positive health. So with this, let me quickly get into my appointed role of presenting on the Ayurveda perspective on prevention, mitigation, and rehabilitation of COVID-19 from a precision Ayurveda perspective. Of course, everybody is quite intrigued to see the word precision. And what I can assure you, all learned gentlemen and ladies, is that Ayurveda, contrary to what your general impression is about being something which is a Nadi Pariksha or some Tambu ke niche somebody doing, springs from the same body, the same paradigm of knowledge, through which our entire body of ancient knowledge comes. We're not talking about the Pushpak Viman and stuff like that, not mythology. We're talking about the complete clear thinking that our ancestors enjoyed. Unfortunately, in recent times, it's been sullied a bit. But let's see, is there a different perspective to the science of Ayurveda? So once again, friends at Rotary Bangalore Brigades, thank you very much for having me here. So with this, when we look at May of 2021, we should realize that it's 1 year plus 2 months since the original outbreak of the disease. And when you go back, when you look back, right, it looks like 1 year has gone by, but we're roughly where we were 1 year back. Correct? So it's quite strange that so much of turmoil, so many lives laid asunder, right? So much trauma in families and companies and the poor, the middle class, everywhere trauma, physical, mental. And still 1 year down the line, we are virtually where we are. We may say there is some changes, but is it really different? The other part is, let's revisit this beast, right? COVID-19. We know so much about it, still some basics. What is the response possible, right? How can I really know myself better in relation to COVID-19? And how do I look at my life cycle health and then go quickly to prevention, mitigation, restoration, the Ayurveda paradigm? So when you look at when I say, back to square one, status quo ante means back to square one. What we have to realize, 1 year back, exposure was inevitable. There was a lockdown going on. Let's be very clear, past this lockdown, exposure for those who are not already exposed is inevitable. We should take that as a given. Anybody and everybody could be a spreader, right? So the personal protection paradigm itself over the last 1 year and 3 months or so has continuously kept evolving. If you look at what they told 1.5 years back, 1.25 years back, WHO told, the government told, if you just keep a newspaper timeline and look at how the understanding kept evolving, and actually now in very simple terms, rather than getting confused about all types of advices, right? There's one basic thing: cover up at all times, right? That unless I'm in a complete safe zone, this thing, it's better to be double layered and protect, right? We'll come to this. So we'll talk about immunity. The fact is, we keep hearing about young getting affected, mortality being higher. The fact is, we have more number of people getting infected, and therefore, as a percentage, perhaps, and of course, today we don't have correct data, so we can't assume anything. The only thing we can be very sure about is, am I getting infected? Is my family getting infected or not? Right? More than that, data today is not complete, is not reliable. Even the vaccines which have come, I've taken one dose, waiting for my second dose. But the fact is, efficacy varies from 70 to 90%. The numbers are sitting out there. There is this point that the efficacy of the vaccine seems to be reasonably good. Some people, after taking the vaccine within 1 week, get it. Some people say variants may not be prevented from attacking. The vaccines may not protect us from variants. All kinds of things are there. But we have to do what we can do. That's the core part. Oxygen, ventilators, experimental drugs. Just as I came on, I heard the discussion about COPD and oxygen concentrators, etc. So this whole thing has got into the thought process on oxygen, right? Is that the way we should be focusing on this, right? Particularly you and your families, right? And now the question then comes, in the event I were to contract the virus, am I at more risk of complications? Because only a small percentage is going to go there. And if I'm at risk, can I mitigate? Can I reduce my personal risk? Or am I a sitting duck for the COVID virus? Right? Because you hear people who are ostensibly healthy who are going into complications, right? And some people who may be not looking very healthy are getting through also. Elderly people may not be getting it always the way, although initially it was supposed to be older than 60 is a clear risk factor. But today you're seeing so many elderly people, 70s, even 80s, who come back quite comfortably. So what is immunity, right? So in the context of immunity, we need to understand that what I'm attempting to do in this whole care process is a concept of primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. It's not just about prevention. It is to be seen in light of the fact that in the event I contract the virus, contract is I get infected by some route, right? Primary prevention is preventing contracting the virus. And during this time, ensuring that I build up innate immunity. So that is one of the core things. What can somebody who's not been infected till date do to build overall immunity, and what is the right thing to do to prevent contracting? Number two, in the event I were to contract, how do I mitigate the progression, right? How to ensure that I only progress to an asymptomatic or a mild or maximum moderate case. I do not go into the severe ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, or shock, etc., to prevent from going there. And the other important part is that in the event somebody known to me or my dear one goes to acute emergency care, how do I prevent that from, how do I restore positive health in body and mind? Because it's not just body, it is the mind too, which is severely affected. And today we are already talking about the fact that I got COVID today does not protect me necessarily from another infection some months down the line, right? So right now, nobody has a clear answer. We just know that we need to protect ourselves to the maximum extent possible. Now, this graph from Nature magazine is quite interesting, that if I am right now at a state of maximum health, I'm uninfected, and then I contract the virus, right? This is the sickness phase, the blue phase. Once I contract the virus, how do I ensure that I, in stage 1, recover and get out back to recovery? Or my condition dips a little bit further, where my health also becomes a little worse. And then from stage 2, I recover and come back. And next is stage 3. And potentially there is a late stage 4, which is from stage 3 similar, but I somehow just get out. Now, these are the people, 3 to 5%, who are actually coming back with serious compromise, right? And this is where a new baseline for health is established. They were probably at their level of normalcy at this level, but post illness, the new baseline of health is defined here. Some unfortunate 3%, 0.5% is the data, could be any person from 2 to 3% are losing their life. So this is the progression. What can I do to prevent and ensure the probability of me going into stage 1 and get out, or maximum stage 2, right? So we need to look at immunity. There is a conventional approach, and this is illustrative that when you talk of immunity, there are two immunities: adaptive immunity, innate immunity. And from an adaptive angle, the natural is where I get COVID, and for some period of time, I may get little protection, although the nature of the COVID infection is said to be such that because of nature of the infection, I don't get that much protection. I may still get a relapse sooner. The other thing is to get a vaccine, as is here, or I get plasma transfer here, right? So this has been told in recent times that this is no longer seen to be an effective solution against COVID. So what am I left with? Effectively, I have got this innate immunity. We have to understand that when we talk of innate immunity, again, looking at this spread, we're talking about the first line and the second line of defense. The first line typically is how to ensure that through your mucous membranes, through your nose, through your eyes, right, through your mouth, how do you prevent access to, that's a first line of defense, right? Now, skin does not apply so much to this particular virus, but the mucous membrane secretions, etc., can enable you to, even through the anal tract, anywhere where there is a mucosal, there is secretions happening and normal flora exists, there is a way to for the virus to enter. There's another line of defense, which normally is not spoken about, is looking at how do I reduce inflammation in my body, right? How do I complement whatever is already there with the right behaviors so that we are able to go beyond this first line of defense? We have to understand one thing: this part only prevents the initial entry. Once it has entered, we need to have the body itself to react, right? So there is a technical angle here, which is coming here, that how do I bring in specific inhibitors to the given COVID virus? And therefore, in that context, we need to understand that when you look at the whole person, immunity or health, just taking different parts of the body and telling I have got good stomach, I have got good heart, I've got good lungs is not the whole. How do I view it? And this is where Ayurveda comes up with. Most of you are senior management professionals or professionals of some kind. I'm sure intuitively it will strike you that the concept of systems thinking, which is where you have many causes, many effects happening, right? Not a single cause, single effect. We have grown very used to a single cause, single effect paradigm, which is never the case. We would like to believe that for everything I have one enemy, I go and knock it out. Call it the George Bush approach, right? Doesn't work. There are just too many enemies. So that's why we have a mutating virus. You have the virus, then new variants coming, which are learning to adapt to the medicines which you are bringing in. And we need to bring the fact that I have a genetic potential. I have certain health behaviors, diet, lifestyle. I live in a given geography. I'm a particular age of life. This is now getting summer. It's going to go into monsoon. It could be in winter. I have a medical history. All of this comes together to make me a unique human being. But we are looking for a one-size-fits-all. Give me a remdesivir, give me an HCQ, give me something else. That's why it doesn't work, which is why after 14, 15 months, we still struggle. And therefore, we get to very, going away from a limited view of what is good health. Ayurveda, 2,000 years back, 2,500 years back for that matter, came out with a very precise definition. This is a Sanskrit sloka, which is put here, that if I have good sleep, good appetite, good metabolism, right? Clear excretion, solid and liquid excretion. If I have constipation, it's not right. If I have diarrhea, it's not right. So if you read, and that's just an extreme example I'm taking. How do I know if my excretion is good? So Ayurveda really helps you to understand these things and to restore that. How to, if my sensory organs, my panchendriyas are not clear, right? And when I wake up in the morning, if I'm not cheerful, if I'm not optimistic, right? My health is already compromised. And that should lead to overall ojas and vitality. So what Ayurveda said in the sloka, apart from the fact that biomarkers and physiological parameters should be within normal limits, was samadosha, samagnischa, samadhatu malakriya, prasanna atma indriya manaha. Such a person is a healthy person. That's what I put here. And you can see what WHO in 1976 came out as physical, social, spiritual, mental health, etc. Our ancestors from this part of the world had envisaged and given a very comprehensive definition of health, not the absence of disease. Why this is important, you will understand here, because every human being is in a stressful environment. There are physical, mental stresses which are coming on the person. As it comes, my relative ability to stay on this tightrope is the key thing which is being seen. So when I'm not able to manage the stress, my relative ability being lower, it will have an impact on my physical and mental status. So what Ayurveda actually does is to help you to restore the balance so that you can withstand stress much better. I don't know if this is, I would welcome comments later, as going and telling that my BP is this, or my liver function is this, or cholesterol is this. Those are markers, no doubt. But it's like, if you want to really understand, you want to look at the health of an engine, you can hear the sound of an engine, you can see the exhaust, you can hear when you put your foot to the pedal without even putting an instrument, you know from the functioning of the engine or the car, how healthy that car is. Similarly, Ayurveda gives you this option to look at functional health parameters and determine what is the underlying health status. And this is very powerful to determine my relative risk to COVID. And what then Ayurveda does is, depending on the degree of deviation from my state of good health, Ayurveda allows a personalized diet, lifestyle, medicine, therapy if required to restore the homeostasis. There is no such concept, unfortunately, in modern medicine. You talk about homeostasis, it's more of a biochemical status. But what Ayurveda does is, you'll see that when you do any intervention, you are able to see well-being coming back on all those parameters, right? Unfortunately, this is not very well understood by the common Indian. And that's my purpose in coming here and talking to you, to make you aware that the presence of these parameters is really what is one of the biggest contributors to your immunity, not only to COVID, to everything else. But you look at COVID specifically. So we need to understand, therefore, to build innate immunity to COVID, what Ayurveda will posit or suggest is, how do I protect the person? How do I support the person? How do I nurture the person, right? So we call it as, so we'll see the principles which go into this as I go into a subsequent slide. So I have to know my level and nature of risk of developing COVID complications. I have to then build my immunity. And what do? I do this by establishing probable disease pathways. So I take an example. If I know that the disease, and simple ways, I live in BTM layout. From BTM, I would like to go to Hebal. I can go via Majestic, I can go via Indiranagar, I can go via, let's say, Outer Ring Road. So these are three routes. What Ayurveda does is, based on published information, based on Ayurveda principles, we're able to say which are the pathways that for a COVID progression to happen. We anticipate and correct the person-specific vulnerabilities along those pathways. So it does not get past, let's say, Dairy Circle in South Bangalore, does not get past, let's say, Marthahalli on the Outer Ring Road. So what we do is, we know this gentleman or lady has got a weakness at Marthahalli, we try to correct that, right? So the thing is not able to do. Why is this important? It is because the virus is entering from here. It's passing through here and going through the air tract, going into the lungs or directly into the stomach, and then the gut, brain, etc. It gets spreads. If I can prevent it from coming from here at every stage, and prevent it from going to the lungs in particular, right, and allow the natural immunity of the body to prevent it from going, I have really succeeded. And that is what most people naturally recover, right? So, and do not progress to complications. So what we do here is that we have found out from all the published literature, as also from an Ayurveda perspective, that apart from the normal conventional things like age, obesity, diabetes, and hypertension, and lung function, like the asthma, COPD, and interstitial lung disease, and history of upper respiratory tract infections, all this, what we really take here is a little bit more. We look at underlying inflammation, right? So most people, due to inappropriate diet and lifestyle, have created internally tremendous inflammation. It's like the kitchen drain pipe. From outside, the kitchen looks really spick and span. You just go and look into the drain pipe, you can see the slime all around. This is not just slime, it is heated slime, which is what our stomach, our canals are. So inflammation, the status of the lungs, comorbidities, because the moment I have diabetes or any of the metabolic disorders, a very solid set of published literature that the moment I have a metabolic condition, whether it's thyroid, diabetes, and stuff of that kind, automatically my immune compromise is a different word here. My vulnerability is higher. If I have a history of cancer or cancer treatment and any other strong medicines, right, for rheumatoid arthritis, etc., my immunity would have gone down. That is another part. And smoking, weight, sleep quality, state of mind, etc. So what we do here actually to establish the disease pathways and correct it. And similar to this, we also have to look at the fact that once the COVID happens, then you have this entire scenario, which is mental health issues, primarily cognitive impairment, physical impairment. All of this is happening today. I've put this for intensive care. You can see even for non-intensive care, significant impact on people, what you call the long-haul COVID symptoms. So there are multiple options which are available, which can really look at building immunity, ensuring that while one is locked up at home, one is able to get medicines there so that people can consult and do it, elder care, women's care, and to ensure that things like diseases, which are chronic conditions, can be managed long distance. But the important part, which I want to come here also, is that now we are approved by government to treat mild and moderate COVID positive patients. Now, this we have to understand from a disease perspective that what is actually happening is people who should have come out due to, and if you see the kind of diet which is given to many of the COVID patients today, you've seen that being given in many CCCs, is highly inflammatory food. The assumption that vegetarian food is good or non-vegetarian food is bad, etc., are all misunderstandings. The same vegetarian food can be pretty bad, worse than correctly cooked non-vegetarian if I'm used to eating non-veg. Or if I'm used to eating veg and I eat non-veg, I have a problem. So this whole concept of appropriate diet and lifestyle, which is what the wise physicians, whether of modern medicine or Ayurveda, will always suggest, be minimally interventionistic. Don't give too much. Just give enough to ensure the body is able to react. I've not gone too much into technical detail because all of you would be inundated with so much information. I don't want to add to that. If you've got specific queries, I'll go to that. So what we do is to ensure that we get, and this is a basic principle of Ayurveda, good health is not given by a medicine. Good health is by enabling the body to restore health, enabling it to remove the obstacles to the body to fight enemies, the body to correct its imbalances and restore health. So we count on the intelligence of the human body, right? If you can imagine how intelligent each one of our bodies and mind is, right? We come from one, fertilized zygote to these full human beings that we stand up. And these human beings can be, these bodies and mind can be counted upon to respond to any threat properly. So we don't do that. We ensure that we do minimalistic interventions and allow the body to correct, because as you may be aware, the excessive immune reaction at an early stage, which is also triggered by going and giving steroids and other things, so that once you stop the steroids, you have a complete explosion happening, right? So you can see how the guidelines have changed, particularly in COVID 2.0, and potentially due to a lot of inappropriate management at an early stage, many people have lost their lives. So the initial part should be to do minimalistic, ensure the body to correct and go. And therefore, this program, we'll be launching very soon as a automated question. I'll show you the questionnaire. But before I go to that, the things which you can do at home specifically, and I'm happy to send these couple of slides to you for reference. And I'll take 2 minutes to just go over it. Always eat easily digestible food. with Swiggies of the world and Zomatos of the world, everything is available at home. And with minimal exercise, and even with exercise being less, we need to take lightest possible food, not too masaledar, and stick to freshly prepared light food as far as possible. If you're used to having non-vegetarian food, ensure it is well cooked, not having excessive masalas. Avoid dahi in general, definitely at night time. Oil, all these items, any type of processed foods, because please understand, these are all inflammation causing, metabolism reducing items. Oats and millets are, particularly elderly people should totally avoid oats and millets. It may be good from somebody else's angle for diabetes reduction. For a few people, some meals is fine. In general, oats and millets, as you know, oats is abroad, overseas, eaten by horses, right? In India, we have marketed it and made it a staple food for many. It's not the best of food. For some people, sometimes it's fine. So anything which is heavy to digest, cold aerated drinks are going to reduce the Agni. So if I have a problem of weaker metabolism, this is going to aggravate it further, right? And gas causing items reduce. Milk at night, if you're used to it, is again going to reduce the Agni, that is the metabolism. So therefore, it's good to add a little dry ginger and chukka and turmeric and boil it. That will reduce inflammation. Overall, it could be good. Raw foods, salads should be avoided per se, period. Human beings, at least in India, are not used to eating raw stuff. So we should avoid that. And recommended dalia, green, yellow moong, ghee is good on a hot, hot rice or hot chapati when I'm hungry. So these items are good. The vegetables are told here. These fruits are in general good for everybody, whatever is told. Some dry fruits and some, fresh fruits, and include these tastes, bitter, pungent, and astringent, because they are light and they will promote digestion, and hydration should be there. Day sleep, particularly after meals, will further reduce the metabolism. So those who are diabetic or in particular obese, etc., if you want to sleep at all, sleep before meals. And as far as possible, avoid it. But if you have to sleep on a light stomach, never during this time, don't take cold water baths, even though it's hot, keep it lukewarm. This is a very important point. In just about 2 weeks back, there was a study in MIT which came out telling that the main issue is the potential infecting person. I'll just take 2-3 minutes more and stop. The potential infecting person will, leave the air in the air around. And even when I leave the room, I leave the air there impregnated with the infecting thing. So we should be very clear that keep the windows open in offices and homes. Wherever in a closed area, if you fumigate it, the hot air will take it and it will allow the fan to go. Everything, the hot thing will take it out, which is why it's important. Periodically fumigate in the house. There are these recommendations. There are some yoga exercises depending on specific vulnerabilities which can be given. Please remember, the brain is very important to reduce the load on it. Multitasking, these are very well known, but late evening hygiene is very important in terms of the data we take in. Maintain 1.5 to 2 hours gap between dinner and going to sleep. So your sleep is better. And the mask is very clear, but COVID appropriate behavior follow for the next 6 months at least. And if you're doing exercise, avoid late evening and ensure that you only exercise to half your strength. Never overexert. It's going to increase the level of disorder and entropy in the system. So I want to conclude, the COVID risk assessment protocol has in April been selected by the European Union for a COVID accelerator program, along with a European software partner. The first time an Indian intellectual property in the context of COVID has been taken into the European Union. We are, really developing this tool. It's completely free. We'll share the link in a week or so, where you can fill it up it's free. You will get a personalized risk profiling and you will get a personalized prescription. There are 9 groups. These 9 groups would get automated prescriptions, very low cost, generic Ayurveda medicine. It's not a one size fits all CADA or this and that. It will be personalized to you based on your age, based on your risk profile. And that will help you to reduce your COVID risk. And you can give it free because it just is completely free. It's based on science. Some of you will need a personalized consultation will be given that. I'm also happy to inform you that day after tomorrow, we understand that the Honorable Chief Minister of Karnataka will be inaugurating a COVID care center. that we are honored to participate in as one of the lead medical partners, along with another leading allopathy hospital group. So what we're going to show here actually is how to really bring in appropriately integrated management to prevent progression of asymptomatic mild moderate COVID patients to a further complicated thing. So whatever I've been speaking, we'll be able to hopefully demonstrate in this thing. This on Old Madras Road, and day after tomorrow this should be coming up. It's a total 100-bed capacity. It's a beautiful setup which is being inaugurated with all of this day after tomorrow. So we'll be there, and I'd be very happy to take your questions. Namaste. That's my email ID. I'd be happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much, Rajiv, for this wonderful, wonderful presentation. I'm very sure, you have brought out the ancient wisdom to us, and we will be all benefited. And especially, I'd like you to share those slides, those last 2-3 slides.
Definitely.
Which, everybody can follow, anybody can follow, and it's like a home cure.
Yeah.
And there is nothing, no harm in that. And as you said, no invasive, nothing is there.
Yes.
And yes, now I will request the members to come forward and ask questions. Rajiv is all set for that. He had already shown us a slide also.
Hi, so can I ask a question?
Surely.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think for me it was a little fast. I didn't understand, how do you evaluate a person? Is it a person-to-person interaction online, or we have to come down to your place?
So with respect to COVID itself, you're telling, Mr. Jain?
For immunity build-up?
Immunity build-up. So what we have right now, Mr. Jain, is a questionnaire. As a first step, you're able to fill that up. It takes you about 2.5 minutes to fill up and submit it. Once you get that, we get all the relevant factors to COVID, which will be determined in our view, right? And then we would be able to send you a prescription, which you can buy locally, or we can ship you the medicines. And it is based on things like, I can show you a form actually. If you had time, I could show you a quick form, but basically it takes the kind of health history. It takes into account your current inflammation. So for example, if I have inflammation in the stomach, right, internally, it will reflect in many, many signs outside, right? And the moment you answer it, you will not know these are actually signs of inflammation. So early inflammation, advanced inflammation, we are able to capture it. The other key part is the kind of metabolism. These are so important, it can't be combined into this half-an-hour talk, but you have this concept of Sama Agni, Manda Agni, Vishama Agni, and Tikshna Agni. If you understand this one thing, if all our children know, it is one of the biggest empowering things to know whether my metabolism is right or not. Because today, most people suffer from Manda Agni or Vishama Agni, which is a low Agni, not Manda Agni, Manda, slow Agni, or Vishama, confused Agni. So these kind of things we determine and give you a personalized prescription. And you'll find it that not only does it reduce your COVID risk, you will feel much better. Yeah? All your basic functioning gets better. When you get better, you're automatically on the path to better.
Thank you.
I'll just take a moment to recognize the presence of our co-president, Dr. Shobha of Platinum City. Thanks for joining, Dr. Shobha.
My pleasure, Ashwaniji. Wonderful talk.
Namaste.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Very
Thank you.
informative and very nice.
Dr. Shobha is a well-known nutritionist, and she is also a very phenomenal speaker, and she has given many talks on nutrition and health benefits.
Wonderful. Ayurveda has got a very, very evolved dietetics. It's a complete thing, and I'm sure Dr. Shobha would also have been partaking of the wealth of Ayurveda in her dietetics and nutrition journey. It's a very rich area.
Absolutely, sir. Blending the old and the new.
Correct.
Go back to your roots and then
Yes.
embrace the new things. That's what I've been following. Wonderful, your talk was.
Thank you.
Yes, anybody else with some questions?
I have a question. So some of us have had have been COVID positive and recovered.
Yes.
Is there anything that we need to do differently, or what can be done in order to make sure that we get back fully?
Absolutely. So I think we have to understand that we don't need to look at COVID alone as one disease. Like, it is something which has come and destabilized me and taken me out of this thing. Now, to go back to my Prakriti, right? I am right now in a Vikriti status. That is, my status has been shifted. So restoring that is a personalized intervention, a diet, lifestyle, medicine, therapy. So supposing I'm a Gujarati living in Bangalore, or I am a Bengali living in Bangalore, I am a Kannadiga in Bangalore. Each one cannot get the same diet prescription, take oats and take this and take. It has to be what I'm used to. Within that diet, lifestyle, medicine, therapy, everything is customized, which is done. So what we do, Akshay, is that we do a very formal assessment, and I can assure everybody here, our assessments which we do is whole person. I've not gone into that. It's not just this, it will take into account your complete history, your current health status, overall functioning, and it's quite a revelation when you yourself realize, because I always say the key to my health should not be with any doctor. The key to my health should be with me. So what the role of any health system is to empower me or you with the right knowledge to sustain that good health, which is what Ayurveda's basic paradigm itself is, right? So it's not some nadi business. It's a very, very structured, logical thing. If you know that Sanskrit language itself, right, is supposed to be so very crisp and proper, it's perhaps the most perfectly compilable language, computer language. There's so much you can learn from Sanskrit language in terms of compiler language. So just this point, I just wanted to say, there is that level of elegance to this whole Ayurveda concept, and I invite all of you to try it out.
Thank you.
And we are in Domlur, not very far away. Yeah. Some question came up, I think. Somebody's asked a question, I believe. Can we
go for a walk?
Yeah, so I think actually one of the greatest liberating points which came up, as I mentioned recently, is that the fact that as long as you're in open air, right, and you keep a distance, it's safe. Earlier on, people are even afraid to walk outside, right, in open air, and you're all paranoid. I think what you need to realize is ensure that your body is in good health, not get paranoid about eating this supplement, that supplement, that nothing is going to do. A status of good immunity is where my body and mind is in its state of natural balance.
Perfectly
and that
said.
is easily restorable. So walks are good, and then do that.
Perfectly said, Rajiv. Yes, you have to build your own strength and immunity. You cannot hide from the virus.
You can't hide from the virus. And if you do this, even if you get it, you will recover so easily. It is not, that I go into a complicated thing. And even elderly people, right? It's a minor adjustment. I need to know, okay, I have a slight gas problem. I have a little constipation. I have a little sleep issue, right? If you can correct these things, small things, you are on the pathway to better health. And it's not just for COVID, it's in general to do it. And you'll be quite surprised if my metabolism is low. If, my Agni is the most perfect word, right? So Agni is low. Ayurveda, you'll take a churna, your Agni will go up. Your Agni is too high, you can reduce it. Irritable bowel syndrome, gastritis or gastric reflux, right? Bloatedness, heaviness after food, feeling sleepy after food. All this will get corrected through Ayurveda. But yeah, so there is a lot that can be done. And the process of consultation is a revelation also for oneself, because you get to see how the journey, right? There is a concept of etiopathogenesis, which is what my diet, lifestyle, mental factors, how does it evolve into my current health status? So it's quite powerful. Any other questions?
Yes, Rotarian Vinod Batija has
yes,
Rotarian.
Yeah. Does getting vaccinated help?
See, I think by all means, today it is a proven thing that I build a certain resistance to a given virus, but does it protect me from another variant? All of that, we don't know. But I would just urge you, right now, because of the degree of uncertainty and data, it's good to take that. I don't think one should worry. My mother is 87 years old. She took the Covishield vaccination. We had minimalist this thing. But one point I wanted to say, when you take the vaccination, immediately after that, ensure that about 12 hours to about 36 hours, take light work. Don't exert yourself, because the body is going through this immune reaction. We may think I'm feeling no problem. And of course, there is this story that elderly people don't get as affected as younger people. But the fact is, you go back to normal routine quickly, you may go into a different type of reaction. So beyond that, Mr. Batija, I would say, Rotarian Batija, I would say that it's recommended to do it, nothing to worry.
Yeah, thank you.
And to add to that, you do the other things. Sorry.
If you're diabetic, do you get the chances of getting the virus are increased? You're diabetic.
See, so when you say getting the virus, you're talking about the fact that there is contracting the virus.
Contracting.
So that is the first line of protection, is that prevent that. And that's very important because potentially diabetics are at higher risk because internally the metabolism is low, there is internal inflammation. So one should do risk mitigation for diabetics, there are simple medicines which will help you to improve that. So there is Ayurveda has got Ayurveda does it in a 5-point strategy. Number 1, what we call Agni Deepanam, that is to bring back the Agni, right? For people whose Agni is low. Number 2 is Amapachanam. So due to incomplete digestion, you'll see many people will say, I don't eat anything, but I don't lose weight, right? So I'm doing everything, but I just can't lose weight. That's because the Agni is low. So there's nothing to burn. So whatever I'm eating is just there. So, and diabetes is again a case of Manda Agni. Thyroid, PCOD, diabetes, all these are Manda Agni. Third, so Agni Deepanam, Amapachanam. Then we have a third thing called Rakshognam. So Rakshognam is basically this antiviral type of medicines which are given. Okay. The fourth is called Shrota Shodhanam. So if you take, so this means there are pipes. If you look at the body, they're all channels inside, right? From the mouth to the anus is one pipeline. So I can clean that pipeline. I've got my respiratory path, which is from the mouth through the nose, it goes into the respiratory thing. I can clear that. Like this, the Shrota Shodhanam, cleansing is happening. And the fifth, very important, is called Rasayanam. So if I'm got some problem, I've got some weakness, Ayurveda has got one of the most powerful Rasayana Chikitsa. Rasayana Chikitsa is restoring rasa in the body. Rasa is not only rasam, rasam is the color of life, the taste of life. So as we grow older, as you can see, like a tree or a sapling, we dry up, right? So when you got a fresh sapling, it's completely green, like the trees behind Mr. Kinger. Mr. Ashwini has got full-fledged greenery beyond. All this is nourished by rasa, right? And then gradually what happens is they start getting dry. Like us when we get too old. As we grow older, this drying up is causing inflammation, right? So what we do is that we are able to nourish it in a way to promote positive health. So this 5 Panchashila approach is very powerful in Ayurveda. This is not, so antiviral is only one thing. So diabetics need to take extra care, Mr. Bhatia.
Thank you.
Yes, Brigadier.
I have a question.
Yes, Brigadier.
You are talking of immunity build up through Ayurveda.
Yes, please.
I just want to know whether this is a long-term process. I mean, is it over a period of time, or this can also, it can be done quickly so that the immunity of
excellent question. Excellent question, right? Even as low as 10 days, right? As less as 10 days, you will see difference. We just completed a clinical trial at Aster CMI Hospital, where we run a center. We run an Ayurveda hospital inside Aster CMI in Ahmedabad. So with about 120 people, we did a clinical trial, which was prophylaxis, prevention, right? And the results have just come out, clearly statistically significant improvement in CRP and ESR, right? They took simple medicines for 21 days, very clear difference in the profile of the study group and control group. 21 days, you take just the medicine at home, you'll see distinct difference, you'll feel better. Short term at home.
This is even for non-COVID patients?
Yes, yes, this is for everybody. For children, you can give it to children, you can give it to elderly, you can give it to everybody.
Can you share the contact number and the numbers where we can contact?
Certainly, I'll certainly share, I can put in the chat window. Yes, Ms. Meeta, you're telling...
Requesting, is the video consultation available, doctor?
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is very much possible. You can sit in the, at home and you'll be able to do this. I'm just putting my email ID. So
do we contact there? You got any helpline number?
So we have multiple, we have a helpline. So what I can do is, I will share, one number, which will be a common number for all Rotarians, so that it doesn't go into this. It goes directly to a person who knows that it's from one of the Rotarians of...
You can send offline also. I'll distribute it on the group, so everybody...
Definitely, we'll do that. Certainly.
Do you need any lab reports or something? Do we
Sorry?
get some lab tests done?
Absolutely. You see, whatever your lab reports are there, Yeah, whatever you have would certainly be useful. They would help us to establish this thing. Please understand Ayurveda, because today's topic was primarily on COVID. I just want to tell you, if anybody known to you gets infected with COVID, we'll be able to help in terms of the right management at home during home isolation, so that they have this, the physical, mental, the sleep is improved, and they quickly recover from that. Right?
Excellent.
So we have a team of both modern medicine and Ayurveda who can come to support.
Do you have
One more
yoga
question.
consultation also? Yoga classes also in your Ayurveda or no?
So what we do, and suddenly we pronounce our name as Ayurvaid, V-A-I-D. Ayurvaid, Vaidaha stands for the best physician and the wise man in Sanskrit, Vaidaha. So Ayurveda, the Ayurveda hospitals. I just want to clarify, yes, yoga is normally not done during the Ayurveda course, but our Ayurveda doctors are also trained in yoga. So we give these complement. When I send you the slides, you can see the asanas which are recommended for this. But let me tell you, the best thing to do for this is to keep the mind calm. Apart from the asanas, the mind is the key to immunity. Yeah. Definitely.
Rajiv, another question is that,
Yes.
I mean, if somebody is affected by COVID,
Yes.
I mean, do you have any specific medicines to work against COVID, or your medicines will support the immunity to fight the COVID?
You'll be surprised if you see the latest protocols which have come internationally, right? There is virtually no medication in the mild, moderate, asymptomatic case. They don't give anything. Now the wise people don't give anything, right? Tamil Nadu protocol, you'll see nothing is there. You just go through the process, allow the body to do. What we do there is to correct those other factors to protect and strengthen so that the body is able to fight back normally and get out. So we'll give, as I told here, specific medicines, and which is what we're going to do in the COVID care center day after tomorrow onwards.
Actually, that will be the best example of this model of addressing this issue, right? Because we are seeing so many other centers which are not able to deliver the right type of medical care. I'm sure this will actually become a real standing example of what people should be doing.
So I'll give you one example here, Akshay. Thank you very much. But just want to tell you, we've taken so much effort on the diet. Nobody realizes it. You go to any center, the diet which is being given is absolutely antithetical to COVID restoration. In spite of that, people recover. Because it's all, I'll show you, tandoori chicken, paneer butter masala. This is the type of menu that is being told. You've gone to a hotel for a holiday. You're a COVID patient.
You should cut out carbohydrates, they say.
For diabetics, it will definitely help, Mr. Bhatija. So there are specific, the point about diabetes, that could be a different discussion. If you get to really understand the nature of diabetes, what is to correct that? And because there is a different discussion. Okay. So I'm sure if you consult a doctor, you would get good advice.
I think I will do that, yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. If you have a critical patient, is there a way Ayurveda helps out there?
I think, if I'm reaching a point where I'm not on a ventilator, right? I've been given some oxygen support, right? Intermittent support, oxygenator support, etc. But he can take medicines. These medicines will definitely help to calm the person down. So if a person is slightly vulnerable, right? We have treated at 82 SpO2, 85 SpO2, post-COVID, serious complications. I'll show you in post-COVID encephalopathy, who's really in bad shape, how Ayurveda brings them back. But you can definitely talk to one of our doctors, and we'll tell you to what extent we can help there. It will always be complementing. We'll never do anything, stop this and do this or whatever. Because the approach is different. So there's no risk of two things, counteracting, because we are treating, as I told you, the Agni, the toxins and things like that. That's what we're trying to do. Protein or carbohydrates.
Yeah, sorry.
Somebody asked about protein or carbohydrates. I just want to say one simple thing. From an Ayurveda perspective, the concept of a typical traditional meal of whichever place. I'm from Mangalore region. I should take the typical meal of my Mangalore region. If I am from Gujarat, I should take the typical meal of my Gujarat region. The reason for all of this is because what is good food? Can somebody give me, you're all a simple definition for what is good food?
It's a balanced food.
Balanced food. Okay. Any other answer?
Something I
Dr.
enjoy.
Shobha will be the right person.
I'm sorry? Yeah, maybe Dr. Shobha. Yeah.
I
Whatever
always-
you can digest.
Yes, I always say, whatever
Huh.
your mom ate when you were in her womb, that's what is
Okay.
good for you.
Very well said. I have one other point which I'll come to, but I think Mr. Gopal ke liye thoda taaliya ho jaye, because he told the correct thing. Because that which I can digest easily. How do I know what I can digest? Is my voice clear?
No, there is some disturbance.
Okay. Is it clear? Is it okay?
Yeah,
No?
better than what
Yeah,
it was.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know.
There's some
So I
kind
think
of
what
Rajiv,
Mr.
sound
Go-
coming.
they are referring to staple food, because depending on their background, the staple food like Bengalis, they have their staple food. Punjabi,
Yes,
they have
but you know what
their-
Dr. Shobha said is also absolutely right. So I go one step further, Dr. Shobha. I say the food of my maternal grandmother is the best for me.
Right.
Because my mother got her microbiome, her stomach. Because the food, when you talk about balanced diet, Mr. Ashwani, right? Food is always good, but one man's food is another man's poison because I can't digest. Agar aap, you take sarson da saag in Punjab, it's good food. But if I take idli dosa here, my stomach is not used to that. I'm used rice eater. I can't suddenly become a wheat eater, right? So it's based on what my stomach is used to, which is why normally what do I know? How do I know the food is good for me? There are 3-4 things. After I finish eating the food, how I feel. There are multiple things. How do I feel the next morning? How does my sleep get affected? Because health, the beginning is understanding this food. And if you can stick to that, so the easily digestible food typically is the food of my ancestors. And because I typically might come through my mother's womb, the microbiome I inherit is from my mother, and my mother gets it from her mother. So therefore, because your mother, Dr. Shobha, to conclude this, my mother might have changed her diet habits because she has moved from one place to another, but my grandmother's habits probably still the same old habits, so that is why I go one generation back.
Ultimately, that's what
The government app suggests we take ivermectin and those other tablets. That is not necessary.
Nahi ji.
They have
Aap
removed
usko
that
sab-
anyway. We know that's not there anyway
They have
now.
stopped now.
Removed-
They have stopped
No,
now.
I mean, they're given some
Not anymore.
4 or 5 medicines.
Yes.
It comes on the.
No, it's been changing, which is why I said I didn't go into any of that because there is one day something is told, the next day that is reversed. So you'll only get confused. So the key to this whole thing, protect yourself, first of all, so that you don't contract. And in the event you do, ensure that you're strong enough to just go through a symptomatic mild and get out.
Meera has got a good question. She says that generally Ayurvedic medicines have metals and they cause problems in the kidney.
Good
So
point.
how far it is true?
Thank you, Dr. Rotarian Meera. Let me just clarify that, first of all, there are different types of Ayurveda medicines. So there is one category of medicines called Rasaushadhis, which are very similar to what these modern pharmaceuticals are, right? They're strong, potent, they're supposed to go in and, life-saving, very powerful medicines, right? They're not meant to be taken on a continuous basis. So they are made of sulfur, mercury compounds because they're meant to do. It's like a chemotherapy thing. You take chemotherapy, it's got an action. You don't take chemotherapy without prescription. On the other hand, there is a complete portfolio, formulary of herbal Ayurveda medicines. Typically what you call the Kerala Ayurveda. It's not just Kerala Ayurveda, you have a complete this thing. So that is called the Kashta Aushadhis, or the herbal medicines, which are 99% totally herbal. But having said that, let me just ask you, if you go and buy tomato in the market, you buy potato in the market, you buy anything today, it'll have pesticide, it'll have this thing. So today, to really get something which is totally free, including organic food, you can never be sure, right? That risk is there. But the other risk that you told, we, for example, 99% of our medicines are herbal medicines, purely classical, generic herbal medicines. So that risk we prevent you from being exposed to. Yes, please.
Rotarian Sudeep was asking some question.
Yeah.
Sudeep?
Yeah. Rajiv ji, namaste. Thanks for the wonderful. So talking about food, I have a question.
Yes,
so vegans, vegetarians turn vegan, which I am one of them. So naturally, milk is the only elements of milk is missing in the diet.
Yeah.
So according to Ayurveda, is it something that one is missing?
See, I really think Indians have one of the most fortunate people in the world. because you have a chance to get such a beautiful set of diets, right? Everything is balanced. You take a thali, everything is there. Any community in India, their thali is so well balanced for that place. So to go for the fat diet, right, is okay. There is a Chinese diet, there's a keto diet, there are hundreds of diets. My strong recommendation would be, don't go for any fat diets. Be with normally balanced food, eat in moderation. Everything is ardha, ardha shakti. Do in moderation, everything is good. Eat, you don't have to diet, you don't have to take medicines throughout your life. Don't go to any extreme. So milk, if you got let's say lactose intolerance, then you need to think in terms of how to correct the lactose intolerance, because that is due to something else. It's not due to milk. It is because your system has got some imbalance. So you can correct it. But I would say lead to the end of one's days, one should lead a normal khana throughout. Of course, when I grow older, I cannot eat what I ate at 20, 30, 40. I have to moderate my food depending on my age. So go all out.
Balanced diet, मैं वही बोल रहा था, balanced food खाओ बस, जो भी है अपना.
और balanced diet अपने माताजी या दादी.
Of course, I did not say balanced Western food. I said balanced अपना food.
ठीक है.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Rajuji.
Sure, Sudeep.
About homeopathic medicine, doctors, there is somebody has advertised, or a bottle which gives you improved oxygen levels.
Yeah. I honestly will not comment. I have no idea about homeopathy. Honestly, don't know. And yeah, I would say actually get the body. Yes, Dr. Meera. Yes.
Yeah, during my trip to Mansarovar and Mount Kailash, I found that camphor, you smell camphor, it helps you in your breathing. It's true, isn't it? I mean,
definitely.
Potlams of.
Yes, to do that, we also have certain oils, that you apply on the chest, right? It will tend to improve the lung function. There are very good medicines in Ayurveda to go in and restore lung function that comment on COPD, which came up, I don't know who asked earlier, but take asthma, COPD, interstitial lung disease. One of the core principles of Ayurveda is that each one of us has an innate health potential, right? That potential may have been disturbed a bit, but Ayurveda maximizes the utilization of that health potential. It is not about killing a germ, killing a virus, killing something. It's about bringing the body back to good health, right? We are so stuck with killing things. We should think in terms of positive health. Which Ayurveda
concept is different. Concept is a very positive
concept. And it works. Huh? It is not just some patriotic Mera Bharat Mahan. It is actually a very, very evolved system of health.
Rajiv,
thank you so much, Rajiv. I think we have reached the end of our program. Any more questions? Yeah, one last question. Yes.
Yes. Rajiv, in case if any part of the body is damaged, like kidney damage or whatever it is, and people have gone into dialysis and all that. Through Ayurveda, can you revive it and sort of bring it back to normalcy, or once it's damaged, it's damaged?
So I just want to clarify one thing here, right? This is not a miracle thing, right? It doesn't bring people back who are on the verge, in the deathbed, back to life or something like that. But let me clarify this concept of, let's say, autoimmune conditions, right? Where the body is attacking itself. Why should the body attack itself? That like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, psoriasis. There are hundreds of things you say autoimmune is cure nahi, steroid khate raho. This Ayurveda will correct, because what Ayurveda does, it makes the body to go back. And it removes the imbalance, the body heals itself. That is why Acharya Charaka 2,500 years back told something very simple. Figure out what is the imbalance. Rotarian Ashwin will be happy to hear. The imbalances in the body, remove the imbalance, and the body will correct and restore. And you'll be amazed. Many of these autoimmune conditions get corrected, number one. Number two, you talked about kidney disease. The beginning of creatinine going beyond 3, right? Serum creatinine going beyond 3, 3.6. You know that suddenly it's going into the moderate. Beyond 1, it is going into higher levels into 3. There are people at 6 and 7, even young people, who are then brought back to a much, much, much better state of health. So when I take a CKD, chronic kidney disease, good outcomes are there, but our objective should not be to say I can completely restore the kidney. My objective would be to say maximize the potential of that kidney and take him as far as he can without getting into other things. Right? So you should always try to go to a good Ayurveda doctor and seek things, but don't wait till the last for that to happen, right?
Body has got a super intelligent mechanism, no doubt about that.
Any type of elective surgery where you're planning after 2 months, I'll do a surgery, check it out, right? Prostate surgery, this surgery, back surgery, knee surgery, anything where you're doing a planned thing, see if there is a non-surgical option available with a good Ayurveda. You may be surprised.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv. It was really wonderful to have you.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that our members will be remembering this session for years to come. And many of us will definitely contact you. So please share those slides and the number where you said that it will be a designated number for Rotarians. So we'll be very happy to contact you.
Pleasure meeting all of you.
I'll thank Rotarian Akshay Malappa to have contacted you and brought you here in this platform. So really wonderful. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
And,
Namaste. Thank you. Sir.
Yeah. Now I will